Hi, and thanks for joining us today. On today's show, Chris and I are joined by Tom Gulley, an Arsenal fan from Indiana. We asked Tom how he became a fan of the beautiful game, and he adds his thoughts to the previous fixture versus Bournemouth, Oxlade Chamberlain, the upcoming match against his beloved Gunners, and also helps us out with our predictions and fantasy football advice. So, if you fancy it, I invite you to sit back, relax, and join us over the pool and far away. Hi, thanks for joining us on today's show. I'm joined by the one and only Tom Gulley. You don't know much about him, but believe me, you will do by the end of the podcast. And of course, as always, Chris Strigian from the Red Rebel Alliance. Chris, Tom, how's it going?
Great, pleasure to be here.
A pleasure as always, mate.
Excellent. I realised that I asked you both at the same time, and that could have gone a lot worse, but Tom's professionalism took over. So, anyway, I suppose we know a lot about Chris, and we're always thankful to have him here, but with Tom being a guest. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to be a fan of, shall we say, soccer? Should we just stick with soccer? It might be a little easier.
Well, it's a rough go of it here. When I started following soccer, you couldn't even find the World Cup final score except in sort of the list of scores under a softball league or something. There'd be no reporting on it. There was one program once a week for an hour. The games were edited down to an hour, called Soccer Made in Germany, but they would very frequently have the European competitions. And that's where I, first became familiar with Liverpool, and at the time, it was the late 70s. They were already quite dominant. And that's when I also got to watch Arsenal for the first time.
Right.
And the 79 Cup Winners' Cup against Valencia, they lost that in penalties, but just the way the team played, I fell in love with them and have gone through the growing pains of American soccer ever since, basically, and having to really, really, really be devoted to following the sport because there was really absolutely no way of following it. The other thing is that I was taught the game by mostly people from Europe,
right, okay.
and British people and South Americans and Germans. So I got a good appreciation of it, unlike some of the youngsters today who are learning from people that are maybe first-generation players or coaches or just parents that are interested in the game.
Excellent. So. I'm a bit remiss, actually, because in all the time I've known Chris, I've never actually asked him how he became a Liverpool fan. How did you become a Liverpool fan, Chris?
I have kind of touched on it before, but not on the podcast. My granddad was a big Manchester United fan, and my dad, he won't thank me for saying this, but was actually named after Duncan Edwards.
Ah, okay.
But he rebelled massively and supported Liverpool. I actually grew up in Rochdale, and I used to go and watch Rochdale play a lot when I was younger. But my dad took me to Anfield just before my 10th birthday. I'd been a Liverpool fan way before that. But basically through my dad, and then when I was old enough to start going on my own, I started going on my own. The one thing I was wondering was, he was saying about the show in the 70s that obviously caught his imagination onto the game. Sort of where did it build up from then? Because for us over here, I always think obviously of the 94 World Cup. And for me, that's when it seemed to spark over there. Alexi Lalas and one thing and another. The fact that they actually pulled off the World Cup pretty well for a nation that, as far as we're concerned, knew nothing about the game at the time, and we were quite surprised got it.
Well, at the time, we had the North American Soccer League as well. So those matches started to be broadcast on ESPN over here. In fact, in ESPN's early days, they showed lots and lots of soccer. But it was probably playing more than anything else. I mean, I would play any time I got a chance to play a match. There was certain ethnic portions of Indianapolis that you could go to, and just there were pickup games in the park and things like that. I played in college and afterward. But as far as following, we also had a show that was an hour long that would show the matches from England, one per week, cut down match of the day. And then they would show the FA Cup final every year live. So I would, get up very early in the morning and watch that as well. But I mean, once the fever sort of bit me, I would just, anytime there was any kind of soccer at all, I would follow it. And then the North American Soccer League demised in '84, and there was really not much of anything to follow until '96 when Major League Soccer began. So you were kind of forced to follow the really terrible struggles of the United States national team until 1990 when we qualified. American fans call it the shot heard round the world, which it probably wasn't even heard that loudly in CONCACAF. When Paul Caligiuri scored against Trinidad Tobago 1-0 to get us into our first, World Cup since 1950. We won't talk about what happened in 1950, but that I honestly, as a kid and as a young adult, never thought I would ever see the United States in a World Cup. I mean, we were getting destroyed by Antigua and Guadeloupe, and forget Mexico. I mean, that was a far off dream, or Canada even. I mean, we had a trouble with Canada. So, that's how it kind of built. And then I got into more coaching, but I was playing indoor soccer, which was very popular here, like 5 or 6 days a week, and just trying to learn as much as I could about the game and, keep track of what was happening in England. We did have two very, popular publications. One was called Soccer America that followed the English leagues very, very closely. I mean, in very, very heavy detail, because they were just picking up the British articles and things of that nature. So I followed that very closely. And, all during this time, Liverpool was the team. I mean, they were, Richard and I were talking about it in an American sports program's chat room, how, Liverpool for so long was the team everybody wanted to beat.
What's the feeling? I mean, like, obviously, with you being an American, if an American player goes over to the Premier League, do you tend to, like, really follow them quite closely because they're an American player, or are you just like, I'm more an Arsenal fan, so I'm not really that bothered?
Well, it's much like I would imagine when an English player goes to, Spain or Italy or somewhere else. You are aware of what they're doing. Now, originally, when the first Americans began to play in Europe, or even to be on a reserve squad or train, we were all aware of it. I mean, it was big news when Kobe Jones went over, and when Jovan Karofsky was signed by Manchester United. They never did that much, but we were aware that the players were starting to at least be of the caliber that they could even be noticed by some of the big clubs in England. And we had various players that would play in the second divisions in Germany or in England. John Harkes, I think, was probably the first American field player of note that really accomplished much in England. And then we had the goalkeepers that went over, Casey Keller and Brad Friedel that went over, and there's two. I put American soccer fans in two categories, and one is sort of the people that really understand what's going on, and then sort of the newer fans that are more neophytes and bandwagoners. And these are the people that are like, well, if Landon Donovan played in the EPL, he'd be better than Eric Cantona. I mean, it's like, no, he wouldn't, guys. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to support your nation, and I do too. But let's be realistic about all this. So our best players have always been goalkeepers, and if you say that around American fans, they want to cut your head off. It's, oh, come on, Clint Dempsey. Hey, Clint Dempsey's our best American field player ever. But in England, he was an average to good player.
Excellent. Well, going back to your Arsenal roots, because obviously Liverpool playing Arsenal this Friday. Who was your favourite Arsenal player growing up?
Well, growing up, if you've asked me who my favorite Arsenal player ever is, it's very easy. It's Dennis Bergkamp.
Good answer.
yeah, when he came along, it really did change everything for Arsenal. Growing up, it was probably Liam Brady. I've always liked Tony Adams, but Liam Brady I thought was really special when he played for Arsenal. And but Bergkamp, to me, if I was picking a team, he might be the first player I picked, just because of his technical ability and his vision and his finishing ability. I simply think he was just pure class. I can't think of a better player for Arsenal than Dennis Bergkamp.
To be honest, I absolutely loved Dennis Bergkamp, and I don't think we've seen the likes of him since, and I don't think, well, you can't say I don't think we'll see it again. I just, for me, he was a one of a kind, and I absolutely loved him. I even had I actually bought a DVD, which was an Arsenal DVD, just because him and Henry, their goals together.
Oh, the Centurions double set with 100 goals each or whatever, shows all their. Yeah, I have that same one, and I should probably say right now, I don't have any venom in my heart whatsoever for Liverpool. I've always had great respect for them. There are teams in the EPL. One of them is in North London that I absolutely despise.
I wonder who that could be.
Surely not.
One of them's in Manchester, but we did serve them pizza once. But Liverpool, I've always had great respect for, excepting Luis Suarez. They've always been a class organization, and I certainly don't. I mean, I'd be the first person to say that the dominance that they had, not just in England, but in Europe for the time during the 70s and the 80s, and it was just amazing. You couldn't watch those teams and not just absolutely respect what was going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Chris will probably agree with me there, though. It's one of the things that we try to do on this podcast is show that there's knowledgeable fans everywhere. And obviously, you being a knowledgeable fan, you'll know all about some of the Arsenal fans on Arsenal TV.
Yeah.
They aren't really doing you many favours. I don't, like, as I say, but Chris, what would you say about Arsenal TV, mate? How would you sum it up?
Talking the way that Tom is, and obviously him being knowledgeable, if I was Tom or if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be embarrassed by Arsenal TV.
Yeah,
I really would.
And obviously, I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, they're all people who, if you asked them, they'd tell you they were, born outside the stadium and all that, and yet here you are, thousands of miles away, and you've got a better understanding of the game and a better understanding of soccer than and your team than they have, and it just amazes me how someone can be so close to something and yet be so blind of it, and yet be so far away from it and have such a great grasp of it. How did you come to get that kind of knowledge about Arsenal? I know you said you were watching on TV, but have you got any sort of qualifications? Did you play the game?
Well, I played the game. Sadly, there wasn't an outdoor professional league for me to play in during the time of my professional career. Once I got out of college, and for a long time in the United States, college was the feeder system for the professional leagues, at least for Americans, which is terrible. I mean, because college players are only allowed to play a certain number of hours per week or practice a certain number of hours per week. And we've gotten away from that now, where our better players are going directly into training academies and professional ranks. But that was the highest form to play in. Now, there were a few sort of semi-pro leagues that were around after the NASL folded, and between the time the NASL folded and the Major League Soccer began in '96. That was '84 to '96. So that's like, without I guess I'll date myself. That was when I was 21 to 33. And even as a goalkeeper, you just can't, after playing indoor soccer, which is 6-on-6 on AstroTurf on like a hockey rink. And we had a big professional league for that, major indoor soccer, that actually drew very well. It exists today. And it's a totally different way to play goalkeeper. It's a completely different animal and mindset. And so I basically coached during that entire time, and I was lucky. I had some very, very, very good, skilled coaches coming up that would encourage people to play attacking soccer and to play attractive soccer, and that would teach you many of the nuances of the game. And then, of course, just being a sponge in every single one of those matches, listening to the announcers and the announcer for Soccer Made in Germany, which was that one show, was a guy named Toby Charles, who was a Welshman. And he was very good at explaining the game and what a professional foul was and what's out of line, what's not out of line. And, I guess it just developed that way. And then watching the good teams, I have a match program. Soccer Made in Germany would send you a little booklet each week before the match that would preview the match and one of the players and give you the lineups and all that. And they would show the cup finals, the European Cup finals. And Liverpool was in, obviously, many of them. They'd show, the first leg one week, the second leg the next week. And so you got to see the good players and the good teams and learn, what good and bad was, so to speak.
Awesome. Well, it's really nice to hear the background. Obviously, with it being a predominantly Liverpool podcast, we do have to move on to Liverpool. Believe me, I could talk about MLS and how you came to be a soccer fan all day, as you know, because we do talk about it pretty much all day.
Right.
But I'm going to move to Chris now. Chris, what were your takeaways from Bournemouth and Liverpool?
Miles better than we've been in recent weeks. Not that we were poor against West Brom or Everton, but we played very well against Everton. And I thought West Brom did a very professional job against us in the game before Bournemouth, but we seemed like we wanted it more again this week. Coutinho was back on fire. His footwork for the first goal was incredible. Everyone just seemed to want it and follow Firmino's tenacity. I mean, the way he chased that ball and hooked it back for Lovren's goal was brilliant. Salah was on fire. Oxlade Chamberlain at the moment I can't say enough about, which I'm quite excited to have Tom on today, so we can get his thoughts on him.
Oh, we'll definitely be coming to that, don't worry about that.
I just thought we played really well again and looked like a side that's going to be in and amongst the top four.
Excellent. Tom, what was your takeaway but first of all, were you a neutral, or would you have preferred Bournemouth got this one, obviously, with Arsenal sniff around that top four with Liverpool?
I let the games decide. I was pretty sure Liverpool was going to win, but I didn't have a need to see Bournemouth pull an upset just for the points. The team on the day that's the best deserves the points, and that's just the way the league's going to fall, no matter how much I wish it would be differently. If I was going to wish for something like that, I'd wish for probably teams up the chart a little bit to get the points the way I want them. But when Liverpool plays Chelsea, Man United, or Man City, in fact, anybody that beats Man City right now is fine with me. But no, I watched the match. It actually, we get one match on our three major networks. One of them is NBC, and we get one of those per weekend in the morning. And it happened to be the Liverpool Bournemouth match, so I did watch the whole thing. And
there's a little bit of scouting.
Well, yeah, just a little. I mean, I watch the match no matter who's on it, because I want to see, the match, and be able to speak intelligently about it. I can watch highlights of everything else, but and if I wanted to buy the package, I suppose I could watch all 10 matches every weekend. But I thought Liverpool played just really great attacking soccer. Salah, to me, is, somebody's got to get a rein on him, or there's going to be problems every single match. And I thought they dealt with Bournemouth's counterattack extremely well. It was just the kind of the soccer match that I like to watch, which is a team that's playing some football.
Yeah.
And
a team that looks to win the game instead of stop the other team from playing, basically. And both teams did that. I mean, Bournemouth weren't as good as Liverpool, obviously, and most people wouldn't expect them to be, but it was nice to see two teams trying to play football and both trying to win the game.
Yeah, it would have been easy for Bournemouth just to pack in the back and park the bus, and they didn't, to their credit.
Well, we kind of do a prediction, and my prediction was actually 4-0. And the reason that I went for 4-0 is because I felt like Liverpool needed to go away from home because there can be a lot of negative energy around Anfield. And I also felt that Bournemouth were there's very few teams I would have picked ahead of them because of Eddie Howe and because of the way he sets his teams up to try and play football against all the odds. And I mean, obviously it worked out on this occasion, but I've also seen Bournemouth, again, just to give more credit to Eddie Howe, I've seen Manchester United go to Bournemouth and they've been struggling and they've been conceding too many goals, and they've put in a really good defensive performance and managed to come away with a point. So, it's not a gimme by any means. Chris, who was your man of the match, mate?
My man of the match was Oxlade Chamberlain. I thought he put in a good shift defensively. He was talking there about the counter-attacking football that Bournemouth played. I mean, at one point towards the end of the first half, it was end-to-end stuff. If Defoe puts that chance away when he hits the post, it's a different game. It's a different game, but not just his defensive work. The way he transitions defence into attack at the moment is by far and away our best midfielder.
I agree completely.
He moves the ball so quickly, and he's so positive all the time. Yeah. He's like a breath of fresh air at the moment.
Definitely. Would you agree with that, Tom? Who did you think was the man on the match in the game?
I'd like to give it to Ox. I think I would give it to Salah myself. Just, he scored and when the Ox went to Liverpool, there were very many. He was such a favorite of Arsenal fans for all the reasons that you mentioned, and a lot of people, myself included, felt like he's yet another player that in the last 5 to 7 years. He comes to Arsenal, he shows off all these great skills, and then he falls into the Arsene Wenger trap of let's possess the ball rather than trying to score. And, I am happy for him. I'm very happy for him because I think at Liverpool, he's being allowed to use his talents to their best result.
Mm. Well, obviously, I mean, that segues in nicely as well because one of the big topics, and we did say we'd come to it later on, is Oxlade Chamberlain. What did you... Obviously, you've said you weren't happy about him leaving, and I can completely understand that. But what did you see his role as at Arsenal? Did you see him as a winger, or did you want him in a centre midfield position, or what were your takes on it?
I just think that I don't think I would have had him as a central midfielder. I would have had him as a winger. When he came into the game, he had the pace and the nose for the goal that kind of cuts to the chase for Arsenal, because there's too many players holding midfielders on Arsenal that just don't seem to want to go for the jugular.
Yeah.
It's like I could keep the ball or I could try to score. Well, let's keep the ball some more. And Arsenal has a bad problem of possessing the ball up to the top of the box, and unlike Liverpool that will go on the break and break down a defense, Arsenal has a tough time doing that. In the Thierry Henry days, they didn't, because they had all of that speed, on the counterattack. And it's just you look at Sanchez and you look at Oxlade Chamberlain, and I could name a few other players that their fangs get pulled. And it's sad that he's gone, but I thought that against Bournemouth, he was incredible. He was doing all the things that I don't think was allowed to do quite so much at Arsenal, and he sort of was assigned a substitute's role after a while at Arsenal. Wenger likes to bring on attacking players in the last 20 minutes, and it's like, well, we could really probably use a guy like that the entire match. I wish you guys would have taken Theo Walcott, frankly.
I bet you did.
I wish somebody would take him.
Well, it's not for the ones who trying to get rid of him, is it? From what we've heard. Chris, what do you think about the match? How do you think it's going to go?
The upcoming match against Arsenal. I'm not overly worried, which I generally are when we play Arsenal. For a lot of the reasons that Tom's just touched on there. I mean, we often get accused of playing the ball sideways and trying to keep hold of it too much, and I think Chamberlain coming into the team has changed that for us. It's meant that we haven't just got Wijnaldum and Henderson just playing safe, keep ball and looking after it. We've got somebody who's willing to push, and I don't think Arsenal have got that until they get into the final third. They've got nobody to sort of transition the play in between. So I'm not overly worried. To be honest, if they play Giroud, I'll be more concerned. But I don't think they'll start him.
Interesting.
So I'm not overly. I think we can cope with Lacazette if he plays. I think we can probably cope with Sanchez if he plays, because I don't think he's heads in it at all at the moment. I think Giroud's always hungry. I think he's been massively disrespected at Arsenal the way he's been underplayed. And I think we'll just have too much for him going the other way. I think Mane will probably start having been rested. Whether that means Oxlade Chamberlain sits back on the bench or not, or whether it means, I think Henderson won't play, which will benefit us.
Well, Mane gave Bellerin kittens last time that we played, didn't he? So I can't see him not. I think it could be. Could he rest Salah?
No. I don't think you rest Salah. Not for this one.
I don't know. You never know with Klopp. Tom, what would you say? Who's the player that you think is going to cause the most trouble for Arsenal, and why?
To me, it's Salah, just in the form that he's had and the way he plays. The whole thing with Arsenal is who's going to show up. Is the team that played against Tottenham going to show up, or is the team that just went and tied last weekend going to show up? Arsenal are a team that have to play well to win. Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, they can play poorly and still win a match. Arsenal can't do that. Salah breaks down a defense like crazy. Arsenal's problems, I mean, we win against Man United if we don't give away goals in the back line. Koscielny is starting to show a lot of rust, and that's extremely worrisome. The back line has got problems right now. I'm not extremely hopeful about the match. Now, they're Arsenal, so just when you're ready to toss in the towel, they'll turn in a performance. Ozil looks like he is playing for a contract somewhere else, which doesn't particularly bother me because he's putting forth a lot of effort, and it's showing. Sanchez doesn't have that same attitude because I think in part Chile is not in the World Cup, and so he doesn't have to worry about his spot there, whereas Ozil has to worry about his spot on the German national team. Good point. He wants to keep his performance level, quite high. It's Salah is the guy that I worry about because he can kind of make goals out of nothing. He's got pace, imagination. He has to be accounted for at all times. That's not to say that there aren't 2-3 other players on Liverpool's side that can do the same thing. He's just the one for me that personally, I like his style of play the best, and I think Arsenal's ill-suited to cope with him.
And is there any player that you would target as a weak point?
No, I wouldn't say there is a quote unquote weak point in Liverpool's side. There's not a, no, I wouldn't do that. I think they're going to be up for it, an away game at the Emirates. I don't think there's anybody that I would say this is a guy that we can exploit. Player wise or positionally wise, because Klopp is such a great tactician. I don't think he's going to let that happen. No, if there was, I would say so. But I could probably point to like I just did Koscielny or that whole thing on our side more than I could on the part of Liverpool right now.
I think you're always, as a fan, you're always sort of wary of pulling someone out as a weak point. Chris, would you say there's anyone on Arsenal that we should sort of look to target, maybe?
I think maybe the frailties as a whole, as opposed to individuals.
Yeah.
I also think that it's interesting that Tom's picked out Koscielny there. I think you're more likely to pick out individuals on your own side than you are of anybody else. I mean, if we attack them with pace the way that we can, it's interesting that nobody's mentioned Coutinho yet. But if he can pick up the ball sort of a little bit deeper than normal and pick out the passes and unlock doors to exploit our pace and exploit their weakness in that area, obviously that's going to benefit us. But if you look at our weaknesses, you've still got to say decision making from a defensive point of view, and that, unfortunately, that's right across the back line. Lovren's the one that's picked on a lot. But it's difficult because you look at the stats and you look back, and I read something earlier in the week that we've got 13 clean sheets out of our last 24 Premier League games.
Yeah,
which is incredible when you think of the frailties that we've actually got. I think the problem is not keeping clean sheets. The problem is when we concede, we capitulate. Well, and going back to the Bournemouth game, like I say, if Defoe puts that chance away and that goes 2-1, that game doesn't finish with a 4-goal difference.
Yeah, but it did. You're not taking away my win. I got 4-0.
No, I'm not trying to take it.
I'm only joking.
Just, I think you've got to be careful because there's fine lines between great performances and great results.
Definitely.
And this time last season against Bournemouth, we actually capitulated.
For me personally, I think I agree with what both of you said. It's not really a point of one player in particular being a weakness. Anyone can be a weakness on their day. It depends whether they're dialed in physically and mentally. For me, Liverpool's midfield is a weakness, and so much so that Oxlade Chamberlain, for me, is now the best central midfielder that we have. And considering he's only been here, I don't even know how many games he started. Is it like 9 games, something like that? Considering he's had that little amount of time and he's had to come in and adapt to a new system and a new formation, and I just think that's incredible. And I can't say enough. I can't praise the lad enough. But at the same time, it does worry you that someone can come in and have that impact, and that, to me, that tells you all you need to know about how poor individually our midfield is. And I would say if Arsenal are to get joy out of Liverpool, the way to do it is in the space between the midfield and the defence, because we don't play a holding midfielder, and players like Ozil and Sanchez and Lacazette are very highly adept at exploiting that kind of space. So that, for me, is the worry personally. Would you say that that's the way that Arsenal are going to try and play, Tom, or do you think?
Yeah, I would. I mean, and I think that's part of the problem with Arsenal right now is that players with vision in the midfield. You've got Ozil, and then that's about it. I mean, I think Kolasinac is a great signing. I think he's doing great, as well as Xhaka. but these are more defensive-minded players, and they just do not have the vision to unlock the defense. They can crack a shot now and then, but to really exploit Liverpool, it's going to take a little bit more than just knocking it around and hoping somebody gets a lucky foot on it. And I just think that the game really depends on now. It also depends on who he puts into that midfield. Is Ramsey going to play?
True.
Because Ramsey's proven that he can make things happen offensively, but he is a liability in other respects. And when you've got, because my number 2 guy for Liverpool, other than Salah, who obviously I have a man crush on, is Coutinho. And, I just think Arsenal is going to have their hands full. If the back line was more sound, obviously, then I would have less reservations about Arsenal's midfield. But the offensive firepower coming out of that midfield and the ability to, release the ball to guys that are going to go for goal just isn't there right now. Now, the match is at Emirates, where Arsenal has performed very, very well. But that being said, I'm not seeing any great resounding, performance in the future. They've tended to play down to their opposition the last 2 matches, not counting the energy drink cup, which he pulled out 11 lineup changes for that. So I don't really count that, but perhaps he should have played those 11 in the last match, in the last league match.
How do you think you'll line up?
Pardon me, sir?
How do you think you'll line up? What tactics, what kind of formation do you think?
I would have to shake up chicken bones in a cup to figure it out. Because, when Ozil, Sanchez, and Lacazette have all played, Arsenal has done, when they're all on the same team sheet at the start of the match, Arsenal has done very, very well. But for some reason, he must think these players are made out of chocolate, because he just has this fixture congestion thing in his head, and he doesn't want to run them out there when it matters. And this is a game that matters. And I would hope that he starts those 3. The midfield, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. It's really a matter of whether Ramsey is going to be in the lineup or not from the start of the match. I have no idea how he'll line up. And for a while he was going with the 3-man back line, which seemed to, I think, allow us to stretch the field more, which conversely made it easier for us to defend. But he's abandoned that now. So, I have absolutely no idea. I really think Arsenal is not a team that is going to beat you on the break like they used to be able to. And I think that congestion that they get offensively makes them really susceptible to counterattack. I mean, extremely susceptible. And when you've got, the potential of putting Per Mertesacker in a 4-man back line, teams on the break.
Yes, please.
give you a lot of pause. Hopefully Mustafi's back there and along with Koscielny, and then, I would assume Bellerin and Monreal. But that's another issue. Is I love it when those 2 get up and contribute to the offense. I love Bellerin's speed, but man, are we open at the back a lot.
Just quickly, do you think that part of Wenger not playing these 3 together is because he knows that those 3 won't be able to play together long term? Do you think part of it might be that he's planning for the future, and maybe even a little bit out of a sense of pride, as if to say, I can still win games without this triumvirate, if you like?
I think that a lot of it has to do with him wanting to take Sanchez to the woodshed. And a lot of people are down on Sanchez, and it started with those 5-2 losses to Bayern Munich in the Champions League last year. And everybody was talking about how Sanchez supposedly just went ballistic on the locker room after the match. And a lot of Arsenal fans were down on him for that. And I'm like, actually, we need more of that. I mean,
Yeah.
Who's the Tony Adams in Arsenal's side right now? Who's the Patrick Vieira? I mean, you can chart Arsenal's decline in winning trophies to Vieira leaving. Who's the hard man at the back of that lineup that is going to basically, or even a Dennis Bergkamp that can go to a player and say, hey, you need to get your head on straight today. Who's that guy in Arsenal's lineup? Point him out to me.
There isn't one. No,
It's-
you're right. I don't know what Chris would say, but would you pick one out? Would you say there's anyone who, stands out as a leader or potential leader at Arsenal?
No, I don't think there is. It's amazing listening to you talk about your own club and how many similarities
I
there
was
seem to be
just thinking the same.
to the problems that we've got, or that we feel that we've got. I mean,
Yeah.
I was talking before about not having a decent defensive midfielder. You're talking about a fullback who pushes on too much and isn't great defensively, and you love the pace and what he can give you going forwards, but not always there defensively for you. Now you're talking about a lack of a leader, and it's exactly the same problems that we've had, since Gerrard's gone.
I think the thing that Arsenal have got to... It's a strange game, this, because usually if you're playing against Liverpool, the thing you want to do is sit back and absorb pressure and hit them on the break. That's your best chance of beating Liverpool, but Arsenal can't do that. And as Tom rightly points out, when Lacazette, Sanchez and Ozil are on the same field, they're a different proposition. So
Yeah.
I say he's got to start those three and then have a three-man midfield that's going to put in the work rate, because the way Liverpool can beat you, they can beat you two ways. They can beat you three ways, actually. They can dominate the ball, which I don't believe that we will do against Arsenal because they're too technically gifted. They can outrun you, which I do believe we will do against Arsenal if they're not in like Tottenham mood. And they can hit you on the break. And I think it's overlooked because we're seeing so much as a counter-attacking side now that people don't realise there's three ways this Liverpool team can beat you. And that's such a headache for Arsenal because they don't have the personnel to stop all three ways. So me personally, if I was Arsene Wenger or if I was an Arsenal fan, I would just turn around and say, well, let's just go for it. Let's just play our football and let's just give them as much as they can handle and just see what happens. Because I think if they overthink it, I don't think tactics are going to be as important in this game as they are usually. I think it's going to be who wants it more and who scores the most goals. And I know that's every game, but I mean, like, I could see this being a really, really high-scoring game, like a shootout. And if Arsenal have got any chance of winning that, they have to have those three on the field. What do you think, Tom?
I think you're right about those three. And it's, again, I would say Arsene Wenger, to his credit, does generally do that. He generally fields a team that he thinks is going to play, quote unquote, Arsenal football, and suffers with the benefits or the consequences of it. I also think, though, that sitting here, it's a little disconcerting that I have no idea who's going to be in that midfield, because he'll throw Iwobi in there just sort of randomly. And there's another player that's got all the trademarks of Arsenal's current team. He has flashes of brilliance, and can really do some great things. And then there's the downside. Is he going to get back on defense? Nope. It's like we need to quit signing so many rangy offensive midfielders and holding midfielders and get some guys that are willing to track back. Now they got Ramsey to pay more attention to defense for a bit, but then you lose his biggest attribute, which is getting involved in the offense. So, I agree with you. I think that it is a personnel issue. I think Arsenal is 2, maybe 3 world-class players from being able to really seriously contend for a title. Frankly, I think they're doing pretty well with what they have. It's probably about as expected. And it's to me, it's a matter of effort. If this team came out and put forth the effort that they did, and I'm not talking about wins and losses or results or what actually happens on the field. I'm talking about just actual effort on the field, like they did against Tottenham. We'd have 4, maybe 5 more points at this point in the season. And it's not the matches against Man City or Man United or Chelsea or Liverpool that really are killing us. It's the West Hams and the Newcastles and the teams that we really should be running off the field, that they go in and turn just absolutely, it looks like 11 living heart donors out there.
Brilliant. I think we'll leave it at that, because that's an absolutely perfect way to sum it up at the moment. But hopefully, no offence, Tom. No, do you know what? I'd rather see Arsenal come out and make it a good game of football. I want Liverpool to win, obviously, but part of me wants Liverpool to steamroller them. But the neutral in me, and there is that neutral in me, regardless of whether Liverpool play, still wants to see a good game of football. And you're going to get a better game of football when two teams go out there and go at it. And the thing with Liverpool is, if we beat someone, there's always an excuse. If Man United beat someone, it's like, oh, well, Mourinho's a tactical genius, and the Man United team have got too much squad depth and this, that, and the other. If we beat someone, it's just like, oh, well, it was the right time to play them, and this player was injured, and they just don't get anywhere near enough credit. This Liverpool team, for me, I think Klopp is building something very special indeed, and I kind of, it's funny, I kind of see Arsenal as someone on a team on the downslope, unfortunately for yourself, that needs to rebuild. Whereas I kind of see Liverpool like that fresh, vibrant, I suppose it's Star Wars week, so I'll say a new hope that Klopp has brought us. And it's almost like what Wenger did when he got to the Premier League, and he employed all these new, fresh ideas, and he mixed it up, and he gave the side an identity. Now Arsenal, you don't think of Arsenal as that team with that vibrancy and that innovation and that I don't know, je ne sais quoi to say as
I would call it upside. I can see a lot of upside with Liverpool.
Yeah.
I can't see a lot of upside with Arsenal. I mean, how much better is Xhaka going to play? How much better is, anybody in their midfield going to play? Who's the bright young star on Arsenal, or the player that you're just watching grow and get better? There isn't one.
No.
Bellerin, maybe you could make an argument for Bellerin, but he's hot and cold too.
I used to love Bellerin, and I don't recognise him anymore. He shows flashes now. He used to be. I used to argue with people that he was the best right back in the Premier League. I would never ever consider taking that point of view now. No chance. And
he's such an Arsenal downer. Since I am an Arsenal fan, but there's just not a lot to be excited about right now.
No.
And one of the things that I've always liked about Liverpool, at least in the post winning the trophies every year era, is they will play football with you. They're not Chelsea. They're not Man United. They're not just going to come out and play a game that is so tactical that it's almost unwatchable.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we're going to move on to the fantasy side of things now. I know this is new to you, Tom. So I'll start with Chris, just to give you an idea of how we do it. But basically, is there any player this week that you would say you've got to get in your fantasy team, Chris?
I'm going to go this week with Wilfried Zaha.
Nice.
I think Palace turning things around. Swansea are shocking. And I think he's going to pose the biggest threat for them. So if you're going to get someone in there, probably a little bit cheaper than whoever you're going to replace, get him in your side.
Tom?
I'm not a fantasy player. So I don't necessarily know how the money goes into this equation.
Oh no, just pick a player. It's all good. Who do you think's going to stand out this week? And should say.
Let's see here. Oh, I don't know. I always, you can always count. I mean, Tottenham's playing Burnley, so I would maybe pick a Harry Kane.
I like that. I like where you're going there. Burnley away. No, Burnley. Yeah. Oh no, I don't like that. Never back against Burnley at home. That's kind of a rule on this podcast. We don't back against Burnley at home. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. You know, Harry Kane, he's due a goal, and you know he was the top scorer last season and all that. So not the worst shout in the world. Personally, we just don't back against Burnley at home on here. It's an unreal.
That's probably wise. That's why I don't do the fantasy.
Well, you know, but you know, it's nice for you to join in anyway.
We're 4-0 Spurs now.
I'm gonna say, yeah, Harry Kane hat trick. I'm gonna actually say, I'm gonna cop out. I'm gonna say, get anyone from Manchester City's midfield in your team. Sané, Sterling, just any of them. They're going to absolutely run wild against Bournemouth. That could be another cricket score. Bournemouth can't defend. They've shown it. They can only try and play football. Get Jesus in, get Aguero, find out which one's playing. I don't know. Just load up on Manchester City attackers because it's going to pay off. If you want me to go a little bit more sort of off the radar, I'll say... I'll stick with me pick from the other week, and I'll say Arnautovic.
Newcastle,
West Ham
yeah.
Against Newcastle. Okay, so we're just going to do a quick rundown of the predictions. Everton against Chelsea. Tom?
I'm going to take Chelsea.
Any score?
I rarely give scores, but if I was going to pick, I would say Chelsea 3-1. It's at Everton, I know, and that's not an easy place to play, but I just think they'll break them down.
Yeah, fair enough, Chris.
I'm going to go 1-0 Chelsea. Very similar. I think Everton will just sit back. It'll take time to break them down, but eventually they will.
I think Chelsea will win it quite comfortably, but I'll say 3-1 to Chelsea. I'd like to be wrong. It wouldn't harm me in the slightest to see Everton beat Chelsea. Brighton against Watford.
If it's me again,
Tom.
I'm gonna take Watford 2-1.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, I've got Watford 2-1 as well. You'll be happy with that with your fanboys there.
Do you know what? And I'm not just going to do this because it's not a nice little coincidence, but I'm actually going to say Watford 2-1. I don't think that's ever happened before.
No.
Where three people have agreed on the same score. I mean, we've only had three people on the podcast twice, but Man City against Bournemouth. Oh God, pick a number, Tom.
I'm going to be kind to Bournemouth and say Man City 4-0.
That is being kind. Chris?
I've actually got City 3-0.
I will say City 5-1.
How ridiculous is it that we're all being kind by saying those scores?
Well, we said it last week. If you like, my prediction was City against Tottenham was 2-1 City, and I said that would be a win for Tottenham.
Yeah,
it literally would have been something where you could have come away and gone, oh, you know,
we'll take that.
Yeah, not like we'll take it. You've got to always try and play for at least a point. But in a way, you'd go, oh, all right, at least we didn't get spanked, because that's what's happening when teams are playing Man City now. They've taken the game to a whole new level, and it's frightening. But it's just going to be all that more satisfying when we catch them. Not this season. I'm not an idiot.
just as long as they lose a match.
Yeah.
16th of January, I think that's due.
I cannot have them going a whole league season without losing.
And I would have been remiss not to mention, obviously, that incredible season. Literally, the Incredibles, I believe they were called.
The Invincibles.
Oh, the Invincibles, that was it. Where did I get the Incredibles from?
That's that cartoon thing.
And just as a nice little coincidence, Tom used to work for Cartoon Network, so there you go, wraps it all up nicely.
Yeah.
Southampton against Huddersfield, so?
Well, this is an interesting game to me because both teams give up a lot of goals and don't score many. So you might, I think this is a very, very, very tight game. I've almost tipped Southampton because they're at home. But Huddersfield has played really, really well this year. And so on the one hand, you might think, well, they don't give up. They give up tons of goals. They don't score many. They'll probably be low scoring. Well, maybe, but because of the bad defenses, maybe this will be a high scoring match. I'm just going to say it's a 1-1 tie.
Interesting, Chris.
Again, this is unbelievable today. I've gone one apiece as well. I've said for the last couple of weeks I've been worried about Southampton this season, and I honestly think they could slip. This is the kind of game they have to win, and I just don't think they've got it in them at the moment.
Well, I'm still not worried. I'm going to say Southampton 2-1. There's a little running joke on the podcast now where Chris tells us all about how Southampton are going to go down, and I continue to just say no, it's not happening. They're not slipping. Stop it, Chris. I think I am slightly biased as well because one of my friends is a Southampton fan, and I do like Southampton. And one of the best sets of away fans who come to Anfield every season are Southampton. So I'll give them that. Stoke against West Brom, Tom?
Bottom of the table match-ish. I'm going to take, because it is at home, Stoke 1-0.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I've got Stoke 2-1.
I'm going to say Stoke 2-1 as well. Isn't it? There's a lot of parity in the picks today, other than Man City, who just pick a number. May as well be a lottery with them. Swansea against Crystal Palace, Tom.
Oh, boy. I'm going to go ahead and take Crystal Palace, of course. I don't think that the curse of Bob Bradley is worn off completely. And I will take them 2-1.
2-1. Chris?
I've got Palace 2-0. Swansea. Again, they've got to start winning games like this, but they just look dire at the moment.
Swansea worry me. Now, you talk about Southampton and them, so Swansea really do worry me. I don't see anything from Swansea that makes me think, you've got Boney, who's a second-rate striker. You've got Sammy Abraham, who you can't put that pressure on the kid. He's very good. He's got a bright future ahead of him, but I just don't see it. And whereas with Palace, for all the ridicule, Hodgson's doing a wonderful job there. I like Paul Clement. I just don't think he's got enough to work with at Swansea, and I think he's fighting a losing battle. So I'm going to say Crystal Palace 3-1. And I might even be being generous to give Swansea the 1, but Crystal Palace don't strike me as a team that are going to keep many clean sheets. West Ham against Newcastle. Tom?
Oh boy, I'm got to take West Ham. I'll take them 2-0.
2-0. Coach would be proud. Green Street elite.
Yeah.
That's an in-joke, by the way. Chris?
I've gone 2 apiece on this one. Newcastle are another team who need to start picking up results. West Ham have done really well recently, but I don't think it's something that's going to last.
I'm going to say 2-1 West Ham. I'm going to agree with Sam. And the reason is because West Ham are at home, and I think they're just a better team than Newcastle. I think they've turned the corner somewhat, whereas Newcastle are going backwards. And until the investment comes for Newcastle, they're another team. So far, I'd put Newcastle and Swansea down as 2 of the teams that are getting relegated this season. 3rd spot's still up for grabs, but I'm quite happy to put those 2 down. It's a little extra bonus prediction for you there.
With Southampton, yeah.
Oh no! Don't you do it. I think if you push me, I think it might be Brighton. If you really push me. But next game is Burnley v Spurs. Now, well, we know that Tom's going to go for at least one Spurs goal.
Yeah, it's for me to have even picked a Tottenham player to be the guy to watch.
That amazed me.
I would
it also
take,
shows how much of a neutral you are as well.
Yeah, well, I would take Tottenham 2-0 over Burnley.
Chris, what's the rule?
Interesting that I broke it this week after you were picking it up early on. But only just. I think Spurs will win 1-0. It's going to be tough at Burnley.
You're both wrong. It's going to be 1-1.
Fine with me.
Leicester against Manchester United.
Leicester has actually been playing better recently, and I kind of like this matchup because we all know what Mourinho is going to do, and Leicester City is so good on the break even now. I mean, they really, as long as Vardy is on the field, he's always a threat. I see this as a very, very a much closer match than maybe some people would suspect, and I'd be tempted to say 1-1, but I'll just go ahead and say Man United 1-0.
Chris?
He's actually pretty much said everything I wanted to say there, and I have gone 1-1. Leicester's record against United as well, going towards that.
Well, no guts, no glory. Leicester are on the upturn. I really like Clubwell. I'm loving watching Mahrez and Vardy back together again. Ndidi will be a big miss for Leicester. That's the thing that puts me off. So I would have actually picked Leicester to win it, but with that one addition, I'm going to say 1-1 Leicester. If Ndidi played, 1-1 Leicester. That's like 1-1 Everton when they won their cup final the other week.
Final,
yeah. I would have picked Leicester if indeed he played, but I'm pretty sure he's suspended. If he's not, then I'll take Leicester. But yeah, and then obviously I've left the big one till last. Arsenal against Liverpool. Tom, where are you going?
Oh boy, it's heart versus head. My heart says, Arsenal, pulls a draw. I would not predict an Arsenal win just based on recent form. That being said, they do play better against the better teams. It seems even the Manchester United match, other than the just amazing Christmas came early goals that we gifted them. That was actually a match where Arsenal did give a lot of effort, but if you take that off the table, it's been since the Tottenham match, and so I do have to say I see probably a 2-1. If I'm voting with my head, I'm going to say a 2-1 Liverpool win.
Okay, Chris.
Well, I've just realised that everything that I said before straight out the window because Giroud's probably injured after getting a hamstring injury against West Ham. So I'm going to go 2-0 Liverpool. And I think Arsenal will play the three players that you're worried about and that Tom hopes that they start with. But I also think we'll do a similar job to what we did against Bournemouth and Sermon. And I think our midfield will rotate in man marking. There's a lot of the game, and if he can't unlock it, then whoever's playing the front three won't matter because they won't get the ball. So 2-0.
I am between two scores in this game. I think either 4-3 Liverpool or 4-4. And if
Chavin's coming back.
I was at that game as well. I think it's going to be one of those games. I think As I said before, I think Arsenal's best chance is to go out, just go for the throat. I think Liverpool are going to hit them hard and hit them early, but I think when Arsenal do attack the way they can, I'll say 4-3 Liverpool, just because I think we've been defending a little bit better recently. But I've got too much respect for that Arsenal attack. If on their day they can score goals for fun, and we can score goals for fun. So, yeah, 4-3.
I have a question for both of you guys. Knowing Jurgen Klopp the way you do, how much does Oxlade Chamberlain returning to Emirates factor into how much and or when he will play against Arsenal?
Chris, do you want to take that?
Something I was thinking about yesterday. I actually think there's a chance that he might not play him. I think Oxlade Chamberlain might want this a little bit too much, which kind of flies in the face of what I like about him and the way he puts so much effort in. But I think there's a chance he might even start this one on the bench. I don't think it'll factor into Klopp's want to win the game and change anything in that sense. I don't think Jurgen Klopp's the type of person that will think about any one individual. He's very much team focused and will do whatever's best for the team.
I think he starts. I think Klopp doesn't care who it's against. He believes in his players. If you are fit enough to start and you're playing well, then you start. And I think that's where the idea that people don't understand about the rotation with Liverpool, it's not that Klopp is trying to save players in terms of, it's for next week and this week and what. He's saving them from themselves. He's basically saying to them, yeah, we know that you want to play every game, but physically you're not ready to do so. And he's proven with Salah, and he proved it against Chelsea as well, with Salah, that he doesn't care who you played for or what you did. If you're fit, you start. And
but hasn't he played the last 3 games, Oxlade Chamberlain?
He has, but
yeah,
the thing is, though, he hasn't had the workload that everyone else has had this season, has he? He's been on the bench quite a lot, and there's been a good spacing between those 3 games as well. It will have been a week since he kicked the ball in anger, so I think that's more than enough time for him to recover. And I think as I said before, he's already so important to this Liverpool team. Coming off the back of a man of the match performance, I would really be disappointed if he doesn't start, unless I find out that there's some kind of sports science reason as to why. I think he starts. I don't think it factors in at all who we're playing against.
One of the things Wenger does do is if a guy has a really great match, and whether he's been a regular starter or a guy that's come on to replace someone else, if he has a great match, I mean, we see it with Giroud all the time. He gets rewarded the next game with a start. My question really had more to do, because I realize Jurgen Klopp is always going to put his best side on the field. I love Jurgen Klopp. These Liverpool fans that want him gone, hey, you do that. Hopefully the day after Wenger resigns, because we would love him. If that ever happens, but some players, it is is incredible pressure upon them when they go back to their former club, and other players have a fire in their belly, almost to say, you shouldn't have gotten rid of me. And as a manager gets to know the individual, how much would that play into it? I guess go back to Danny Welbeck against Manchester United for us.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting, and I expect the Arsenal crowd to give him a rousing welcome.
Really? I'd be interested to see that. I hope so. But from what I've spoken to some Arsenal fans and Arsenal TV, of course, the comedy channel, they don't seem to be aligned with your point of view. I think you're right, though. I think he was a young player. He did everything that he could do at Arsenal. He came in. He played wherever he was put. It's not his fault that Wenger is unable to get the most out of him, and he did what he needed to do for his development. So I would agree.
And it wasn't a Robin van Persie situation either, where he was sort of lobbying to leave for quite some time, and it was more of a case where, hey, I'm in this situation where I'm not getting the playing time that a player of my caliber and at the age I'm at really needs to be getting. And if there's another team, particularly a big club like Liverpool, that can give me that, then that needs to happen.
Well, he always said he wanted to be Steven Gerrard, didn't he, Chris?
He did, yeah. I think the fact that he turned down a move to Chelsea, by all accounts, to join us, shows that he's actually gone somewhere so that he can play football and so that he can, as you were just touching on there, emulate somebody who he always wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. And obviously there's a big thing, I don't know if you saw it, Tom, but as he was being interviewed after getting the Man of the Match award at Bournemouth, the interviewer asked Coutinho, how much does it factor in, and how much are you more likely to stay, and this, that, and the other. And Oxlade Chamberlain actually cut in. He let Coutinho speak. He let him be his own man. But then, as the interviewer continued, he went, "Listen, Coutinho's or Philip, whatever he called him, he's a model professional. He's done nothing but give 100% since I've been at the club, and I don't think it's fair for you to ask those questions." And he really showed a maturity and a leadership that's been lacking in this Liverpool team. I mean, the debate that has arisen is, would Jordan Henderson have done the same thing? And I'm not 100% sure he would have.
Yeah. So, he was very, Arsenal takes certain players into their heart, and Thomas Rosicky today announced he was retiring from professional football. And there's a guy who, he did his time on the bench, and when he got his chances, he came through and just I really admired the way he played, and he will always be loved by Arsenal fans. He's not Ashley Cole, he's not Cesc Fabregas. And Ox is one of those players that I've never heard an Arsenal fan say a bad word about him. And on the subject of Arsenal TV, I quit watching that a long time ago. I mean, when they first started, I watched a few of their things and just went, this is T.C. Casey, who Richard and I both know. He's a fan of an American sports team that all reason has lost their head. And there's actually a few other Arsenal channels where they are very reasonable and very serious about what they're doing, and it's not quite the sideshow. Now, that does play to a certain, segment of the Arsenal fan base, and I would have to assume that there's a certain segment of every team that God bless them, just loves their team so much that all reason has left their soul.
Yeah, no, you're right. And listen, we bring up Arsenal TV. We say it as comedy. We don't assume that that's every Arsenal fan. I mean, I certainly don't. I know Arsenal fans, including yourself, who know the game, and it's very easy to stereotype. And as Liverpool fans, we have to deal with that stereotyping more so than probably any other team in the country. So we know better than most. So when we say it, it is very much tongue-in-cheek. Are there any of those Arsenal channels that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, I can't think of them offhand. I would say that the coverage that Arsenal the club gives is very even-handed and actually very on point. They do a nice job before all the matches. I'm assuming all the big clubs have an hour-long pregame show.
Yeah, pretty much,
like Arsenal does with, normally a Perry Groves or Stephen Hughes or one of the former players, Nigel Winterburn, will be on and analyze the match. But they also go outside the stadium and inside the stadium, and they'll talk to somebody like, Pat Jennings or one of the older players, and then they also talk to the fans. And the fans generally that they get on are they're pro Arsenal, but they're not, sick in the head about it.
Yeah. Well, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on board. Chris, I'm sure you feel the same way.
Absolutely, welcome anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, you are welcome anytime, as Chris said. And I would like to plug your show. We haven't spoken about this, so it might come as a bit of a surprise for you. But it's called the Tom Gulley Show. I'm not even going to try and attempt to explain what it is. So if you want to just go ahead and tell people what it is, because it's absolutely crazy.
Well, there's no soccer on it whatsoever. I basically, my soccer endeavors are that I go on to American radio stations during major tournaments or when anything big happens in the world of soccer, and I'm a pundit, for 15 minutes or however long. My show itself is, as Richard said, somewhat schizophrenic. It's basically anyone or anything that I find interesting, I interview them. So I have a lot of authors of books. I have had U.S. senators on. I've had adult entertainment stars on my program.
Yeah, that was the one I listened to.
I've had...
Not what I was expecting, though.
Well, no, I take it very seriously. So it's hopefully a little bit entertaining and literally anything that I find interesting. I found a guy that invented a toy for kids that you could hook up to inanimate objects and play the piano with. And I've had people that clean up crime scenes. I've had, famous American musicians and actors and, but literally anybody that I find interesting. I had a guy that cleans up when animals get hit along the side of the road. That's his job. I had that guy on one time. It's all over the place. The motto of the show is interesting people saying interesting things. So that's the best way that I can put it. I had a guy on, wrote a book. He was Hungarian during the Iron Curtain. And it's a little known story, but a very interesting one of he and 7 of his friends hijacking a plane with a KGB officer and forcing it to fly over the Iron Curtain into West Germany.
Wow.
To freedom. I mean, I've got, you name it, and I probably have had it. I'm probably going to start an MLS show here with the upcoming season. But my show is, as you said, it's truly schizophrenic.
It's certainly unique, Tom. I can't even say it again. It's just been a pleasure, mate. And any time, listen, whether it's the show or not, you ever want to just talk about football, you know where I am. And I'm sure Chris will join me as well, and he'll be happy to speak to you about footy anytime.
Great, Chris. Nice meeting you, Richard. Thanks for having me. And hey, let's just have a great match on Saturday.
Yeah, let's just hope for that. And Merry Christmas, mate.
Same to you.
All the best. Take care now. So that's another one in the bag. I'd like to once again give a massive thanks to Tom for joining us. If you like random podcasts, they don't get much more random than his, so I'd invite you to check that out. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. Join us on our Facebook group, Over the Pool and Far Away. And feel free to email us at otpafa@gmail.com. And also we're on Twitter at RichieOTP. For now though, I'll just end it as I always do by saying, come on Liverpool.